Part 1. Morning like any other. At 6:17 a.m., Daniel Mercer woke up to the sound of a phone vibrating against wood. Not ringing, not alarming, just vibrating. That dull, insect-like hum that means someone is calling, but not urgently enough to scream about it. He didn't answer. Daniel lay on his back, staring at the faint crack in the ceiling above his bed. The crack had been there since the building settled after a minor earthquake years ago. Everyone in the building had one. It was like a fingerprint, proof that the place had lived through something and kept standing. The phone stopped vibrating. Silence returned, broken only by the distant hiss of traffic waking up and the low thud of pipes in the walls. Daniel exhaled slowly and sat up. He was 39 years old, divorced, and lived alone in a small apartment on the fourth floor of a concrete building that had once been painted beige and now existed in a color best described as tired. His job didn't require early mornings, but he woke early anyway. Habit, maybe, or anxiety that never quite slept. He shuffled into the kitchen, filled the kettle, and leaned against the counter while it heated. Outside his window, the city looked normal. Too normal. A delivery truck idled on the corner. A woman jogged past with earbuds in. Somewhere nearby, a dog barked with enthusiasm, but no clear reason. Nothing suggested that within 12 hours, the city would be on every news channel in the country. Daniel poured coffee into a chipped mug that read "World's Best Dad," a joke gift from years ago that he never threw away. His phone buzzed again. This time he looked. Maya, 3 missed calls. That got his attention. Maya didn't call repeatedly unless something was wrong, or unless she was angry. Sometimes those were the same thing. He tapped her name. Daniel, she said immediately. No greeting. No pause. Where are you right now? In my kitchen, he said. Why? There was a sound on her end. Wind, maybe. Or traffic moving fast. You need to turn on the news. He frowned. Is this about the protests again? No, she said. It's not that. Then what is it? She hesitated. Just long enough for the kettle to click off behind him. They've closed the East Bridge. Daniel straightened. Closed how? Completely. No traffic. Police. Military. That word sat heavy between them. You're kidding. I'm standing 3 blocks away, she said. And no one's allowed near it. Daniel walked to the window, looking out toward the distant line where the bridge should have been visible if the buildings weren't in the way. Did something happen? I don't know, Maya said. No announcement yet. But people are filming. And they're not letting anyone cross. Daniel rubbed his face with one hand. That bridge doesn't just close, he said. It's the main artery. Half the city depends on it. I know. Another pause. Daniel, she said quietly. You still have your old press badge, right? He looked at the coffee growing cold in his hand. I do. Good, she said. Because whatever this is, it's going to be big. By 7:03 a.m., the city had begun to notice. Traffic backed up in places it never did. Transit apps started showing delays marked only with a gray question mark. Helicopters appeared overhead, not news helicopters yet, but official ones. The kind that don't circle for drama, but for control. Daniel dressed quickly, pulling on jeans and a jacket he hadn't worn in months. The press badge sat in a drawer beneath old cables and notebooks. He clipped it to his belt, unsure whether it would still mean anything. As he stepped into the hallway, his neighbor Mrs. Klein poked her head out. Something's going on, she said, eyes wide. My son says the phones are slow. Daniel nodded. I've heard. She lowered her voice. You think it's you know? No, he said quickly. Probably not. But the truth was, he didn't know what it was anymore. Outside, the air felt charged. Not panicked, not yet, but alert. Like the city had opened one eye and was deciding whether to wake up fully or roll over and pretend nothing was wrong. Daniel headed toward the east side on foot, blending into the growing stream of people walking instead of driving. Some were filming. Some were speculating. Most were just confused. At 7:41 a.m., every phone on the street buzzed at once. Emergency alert. Please avoid the Eastern District until further notice. No explanation. No end time. Just that. Daniel stopped walking. Around him, people read the same words, their faces shifting in real time. Confusion turning into concern, concern into something sharper. A man near him laughed nervously. This is some drill, right? No one answered. Far in the distance, a siren began to rise. Not one, several. And they weren't moving. They were staying in place. Part 2. The shape of the problem. By 8:12 a.m., the sidewalks near the Eastern District had become rivers. People weren't running. They weren't panicking. Not yet. They were moving with purpose but without direction, like water poured onto uneven ground, flowing around barriers, pooling at corners, slowing where the streets narrowed. Daniel walked with them, badge clipped but covered by his jacket. Police had set up the first visible perimeter 2 blocks from the bridge. Metal barricades. Patrol cars angled diagonally. Officers standing shoulder-width apart, hands resting near radios, eyes scanning faces more than traffic. Above them, the helicopters hovered low enough that you could feel the vibration in your chest. Daniel stopped near a coffee shop that had pulled its metal gate halfway down, as if unsure whether to close completely or stay open out of stubbornness. A man next to him muttered, "They don't do this for accidents." Daniel nodded without looking at him. "No," he said. "They don't." He slipped his jacket open just enough for the badge to catch the light and approached an officer at the edge of the barricade. "Press," Daniel said calmly. "Any statement yet?" The officer's jaw tightened. He glanced at the badge, then at Daniel's face. "Not for you," he said. "Not for anyone." "What's the nature of the closure?" Daniel asked. "Structural? Security?" The officer leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "All I'm allowed to say is this. Whatever's on that bridge isn't supposed to move." Daniel felt a chill crawl up his back. "Is it dangerous?" The officer straightened again. "Sir, please step back." That was the end of the conversation. By 8:47 a.m., the rumors had outpaced reality. Someone said there was a truck abandoned halfway across the bridge. Someone else said it was wired. A woman swore she saw men in hazmat suits. A teenager live-streamed himself claiming he heard gunshots. None of it could be verified. All of it spread. Daniel found Maya near a news van parked illegally on a side street. She was talking fast into her phone, gesturing sharply with her free hand. "No, I don't care what they say. I'm telling you what I see. This isn't crowd control. This is containment." She spotted Daniel and hung up. "Good," she said. "You made it." "What do you know?" he asked. She pulled him aside, lowering her voice. "There's something on the bridge," she said. "Midspan. Not a vehicle. Not a person." "What then?" She hesitated. For the first time since he'd known her, she looked uncertain. "They won't say," she said. "But I spoke to a structural engineer they pulled in. He was shaking." "That's not helpful," Daniel said. "No," she agreed. "It's terrifying." They moved closer to the river, finding a spot where the bridge was partially visible between buildings. You couldn't see the center, just the approach and the long gray stretch disappearing into distance. Through binoculars, Daniel saw something unusual. Traffic lights frozen on red. No cars. No people. And halfway down the bridge, a darker shape on the road surface. Too small to be a truck. Too large to be debris. "What is that?" he murmured. Maya shook her head. "No one knows." At 9:23 a.m., the city received its second alert. Emergency update. Please remain calm. There is no immediate threat to the general public. People read it and did not calm down. The phrase "no immediate threat" landed like a warning, not reassurance. It implied future danger. Implied something being watched, measured, evaluated. A woman near them started crying quietly. Her husband put an arm around her and stared at the bridge as if daring it to explain itself. Daniel's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Do not publish anything yet." He showed it to Maya. "They're already behind," she said. "Which means this isn't just local." "Who sent it?" Daniel asked. She shook her head. "Doesn't matter." At 10:01 a.m., the sirens changed. They stopped wailing and became steady tones. Long, sustained notes that didn't move through the streets but sat on them, pressing down. Daniel had heard that sound once before, years ago, during a chemical spill outside the city. It was the sound of instructions coming without words. "Shelter in place," someone whispered nearby. No one had said it officially, but people started leaving. At 10:37 a.m., the first official press conference began. It wasn't held near the bridge. It wasn't even downtown. It was streamed from a room with no windows, no identifying features, and a podium that bore no seal. A man in a plain suit spoke carefully. "We are currently responding to a situation involving an unidentified object on critical infrastructure," he said. "Out of an abundance of caution, we have restricted access to the area." "What kind of object?" a reporter shouted. "We cannot comment on specifics at this time." "Is it a weapon?" There is no evidence to suggest hostile intent. That answer satisfied no one. Daniel felt his phone vibrate again. Another unknown number. You should go home. He typed back before thinking. Why? The response came almost instantly. Because the next decision won't be ours. Daniel looked up at the bridge. For the first time since morning, he noticed something new. The dark shape in the road looked different. Not larger, but clearer. As if the light had shifted, or as if it had shifted itself. Part 3. When time enters the room. At 11:14 a.m., the bridge cameras went dark. Not all at once. That would have been too clean. Too intentional. Instead, they dropped one by one, like lights burning out in a long hallway. Feed after feed cut to static or black, until the monitoring screens in the traffic control center showed nothing but timestamps and error codes. That was when the word countdown first appeared in an internal message that wasn't meant to leave the building. It did anyway. Daniel was standing near a food truck that had inexplicably stayed open, the smell of frying oil hanging heavy in the air, when Maya's phone buzzed, and she went very still. She read the message twice. Then a third time. What? Daniel asked. She turned the screen toward him. A photo. Low resolution. Cropped. Clearly taken from a distance with a long lens. It showed the object. Or rather, something that surrounded it. Painted onto the asphalt in thick, white lines was a shape that hadn't been there before. A rough circle, imperfect, uneven, as if drawn by someone in a hurry. Inside the circle, symbols. Not letters. Not numbers. Marks that looked almost accidental. Slashes, dots, curves. The kind of thing your hand makes when it's trying to explain something faster than language allows. And next to the photo, a single line of text. T-unknown. Daniel's mouth went dry. That's not paint, he said. That's chalk. Maya nodded. Which means someone walked out there. That bridge is locked down. Apparently not completely. By noon, the city was no longer pretending this was temporary. Subway lines were shut down. Schools announced early closures. Hospitals moved non-critical patients. Grocery stores filled faster than they could restock, people moving with the quiet efficiency of those who didn't want to admit fear but were acting on it anyway. Daniel walked. He didn't know where he was going. Just away from the crowd, away from the noise, trying to think. The messages on his phone kept coming. Stay put. Do not approach the river. This is not a drill. That last one hit differently. He stopped near a park where the trees muffled the sound of sirens. A man sat on a bench, feeding pigeons with shaking hands. Do you think it's real? The man asked suddenly, not looking at Daniel. What? Daniel said. The end of things, the man said. Not the big end. Just an end. Daniel didn't answer, because he didn't know which end the man meant. At 12:26 p.m., the city's mayor appeared briefly on television. She looked exhausted. We are coordinating with federal authorities, she said. I ask everyone to remain calm and follow instructions. There is no cause for panic. Someone threw a shoe at a TV in a bar 2 blocks away. At 1:02 p.m., Maya found Daniel again. She was pale now. The adrenaline had worn off, replaced by something heavier. They've identified it, she said. Identified how? Daniel asked. They know what category it belongs to, she said. They don't know what it is. She showed him a document. Not official, not stamped, clearly leaked. Classification, anomalous static event. Behavior, temporal inconsistency observed. Daniel frowned. That's not a thing. It is now. He read further. Object appears fixed in position, but not in time. Observed intermittence at irregular intervals. Effects include signal loss, visual distortion, and localized memory gaps. Daniel looked up. Memory gaps? Maya swallowed. People near it can't agree on how long they've been there, or what they saw. A chill ran through him. So what happens when the countdown ends? Maya shook her head. No one knows. At 1:47 p.m., something happened that could not be contained. A live traffic cam, one they thought was offline, flickered back on for 12 seconds. 12 seconds was enough. The footage spread faster than any official statement ever could. The object was not mechanical, not biological, not symmetrical. It looked like a place where the world had folded slightly wrong. The air around it bent. The road beneath it seemed both cracked and intact at the same time. And the chalk circle around it kept redrawing itself. Lines fading, reappearing, shifting, as if the ground itself was trying to remember where the boundary was supposed to be. Daniel watched the clip on someone's phone. When it ended, The man holding the phone whispered, "That's not supposed to be here." No one argued. At 2:11 p.m., Daniel received a call from a number that did not appear on the screen. He answered without speaking. "Mr. Mercer," a voice said. Calm. Controlled. "We know you're nearby." Daniel closed his eyes. "Yes," he said. "You used to cover infrastructure failures," the voice said. "Bridge collapses. Gas leaks. Transit accidents. That was years ago. Which is why you're useful," the voice replied. "You know how cities break, and how they lie about it." Daniel leaned against a tree. "What do you want?" "We want you to observe," the voice said. "And we want you to remember." "Remember what?" The line went quiet for a moment. "Because," the voice said, "this thing doesn't just affect structures. It affects records." Daniel's heart pounded. "You're asking me to be a witness?" "Yes." "To what?" "To the moment when time decides whether it keeps moving forward," the voice said, "or chooses a different direction." The call ended. Daniel stared at his phone. Above him, the sirens stopped. All of them. At once. Part 4. The hour that slipped. When the sirens stopped, the silence was worse. It wasn't peaceful. It wasn't relief. It was the kind of silence that made people check their phones just to confirm the world hadn't ended without telling them. Daniel noticed it first in the park. Conversations stalled mid-sentence. Birds lifted from branches all at once, startled by nothing anyone could hear. A child asked her mother why the clock on her tablet said 1:58 when the sun was already low enough to suggest later. At 2:34 p.m., Daniel realized he didn't know how long he'd been standing there. He checked his phone. 2:34 p.m. He frowned. He could have sworn it had been past 3. He looked around. Other people were checking their screens too, the same puzzled expression passing from face to face like a quiet infection. Maya ran toward him from the path, breathless. "How long has it been?" she asked. "Since what?" "Since the sirens stopped." Daniel hesitated. 10 minutes? Maybe 15. She stared at him. "They stopped an hour ago," she said. The city entered a strange, stuttering rhythm. Traffic lights cycled incorrectly. Radio stations repeated the same song twice in a row. People argued gently over timestamps, calendars, appointments that didn't line up anymore. At a hospital on the west side, a nurse documented a patient's intake 3 times, each record stamped with a different time, none of which made sense in sequence. No one said time distortion out loud, but everyone felt it. At 3:19 p.m., Daniel was escorted across a checkpoint he'd passed all morning without question. This time, there was no pretending he was just press. The men who approached him wore plain clothes and identical expressions. No insignia, no names. One of them said, "You're coming with us." Maya grabbed his arm. "Where?" The man met her eyes. "Somewhere that still has clocks." They drove in silence. The vehicle had no markings. The windows were tinted just enough that the city outside looked like a reflection of itself, familiar but slightly wrong. They stopped beneath the bridge. Not on it. Under it. The river flowed normally, indifferent to the panic above. Sunlight broke on the surface in the way it always had. That almost made Daniel laugh. A temporary structure had been erected along the bank. Floodlights, cables, portable walls forming a makeshift command center. Inside, the air buzzed. Monitors displayed feeds from satellites, drones, seismic sensors, none of them agreeing with each other. A digital clock on the wall blinked erratically between 1542 and 1607. "That one's not connected to anything," someone muttered. They led Daniel to a table where a woman in her 50s sat with a stack of notebooks, real paper, dog-eared, and filled with handwriting. "You're Daniel Mercer," she said. "Former investigative journalist. No social media presence worth erasing. And you still write by hand." "How do you know that?" Daniel asked. She slid one of the notebooks toward him. "Because," she said, "pens still work." Inside the notebook were entries. Dated. Same handwriting. His. But he didn't remember writing any of them. The entries were fragmented. 2:05, object stable. 2:41, lost feed again. 3:12, chalk circle failed. Daniel's pulse quickened. "I've been here before," he said. "Yes," the woman replied. "Several times." "How many?" She checked another notebook. 4, she said. "That you remember writing. And the ones I don't." She didn't answer. She explained carefully. The object was not moving forward through time at the same rate as the rest of the city. It wasn't traveling backward either. It was skipping, existing fully at some moments, partially at others, and not at all in between. Every skip caused local inconsistencies. Memory loss, desynchronization, clocks disagreeing. The chalk circle wasn't symbolic. It was practical, a way to define a boundary the object couldn't quite cross, because it couldn't decide when it was allowed to. And the countdown? Daniel asked. The woman exhaled. That's not for us, she said. It's for it. At 4:02 p.m., a technician shouted. It's stabilizing. The monitors aligned for the first time all day. The object sharpened into focus. And for a brief, terrifying moment, it looked like something familiar. Not an object. A place. A street corner. A crosswalk. A bus stop sign. A piece of the city, but not this city. Daniel felt dizzy. It's not invading, he whispered. It's overlapping. The woman nodded. Yes. And when the countdown ends? She met his eyes. Either the overlap completes, she said, or it collapses. And what happens to us? That depends, she said quietly, on whether we're standing where it wants to be. At 4:28 p.m., Daniel noticed something no one else had. One of the notebook entries wasn't written by him. It was written to him. If you are reading this, it means we ran out of time. Below it, a final line. Go to the center. Above them, on the bridge, the chalk circle vanished. Part 5, the center. At 4:41 p.m., the countdown appeared. Not on phones. Not on screens. In the air. People would later argue about how they first noticed it. Some said it was a shadow. Others swore it was a reflection. A few insisted they heard it before they saw it. A soft, rhythmic clicking, like a clock being wound by an unseen hand. Above the bridge, faint but undeniable, numbers hung where smoke should have been. 18 minutes and 47 seconds. No announcement accompanied it. No siren. Just the city collectively realizing that whatever this was, it had decided to speak in a language everyone understood. Panic didn't explode. It organized. People moved with intention now. Parents grabbed children. Strangers took each other's hands. Some ran away from the river. Others ran toward it. Daniel stood beneath the bridge, staring upward. The center, he whispered. The woman with the notebooks appeared beside him. You don't know what that means, she said. I do, Daniel replied. I just don't know where it is yet. She handed him a final notebook. This is everything you've written so far, she said. And everything you might forget again. And you? He asked. She smiled faintly. I'm where I'm supposed to be. That was not comforting. The bridge began to change. Not physically. Structurally, it was the same concrete and steel it had always been. But people started recognizing things that shouldn't have been there. A lamppost with a design from 20 years ago. A billboard advertising a store that closed last decade. Street markings that didn't match any current map. Pieces of two moments in time were laying claim to the same space. Daniel climbed the service stairs to the bridge deck, escorted by no one. There were no guards anymore. Only people. Some stood frozen, filming. Some knelt, praying. Some argued about whether this was real or mass hysteria. In the center of the bridge, the chalk circle had returned. This time, it was perfectly drawn. 12 minutes and 3 seconds. The air inside the circle shimmered. Daniel stepped closer and remembered. Not his childhood. Not his marriage. Not regrets. He remembered standing here. Before. Arguing with someone whose face he couldn't quite see. You don't belong there. That other version of him had said. I do. Daniel answered now out loud. A man nearby looked at him strangely. Daniel ignored him and stepped into the circle. The world did not end. It folded. The bridge around him became quieter, not silent, but distant, like sound underwater. The numbers overhead blurred. Inside the circle, Daniel saw the other place clearly now. Another version of the same bridge. Cleaner, newer, with different cars, different clothes on the people. And in the exact center stood another man. Him, slightly younger, hair darker, eyes sharper. They looked at each other. You took too long, the other Daniel said. You didn't explain, Daniel replied. The younger version gestured around them. We're a correction, he said. A merge that was never completed. Why now? Because cities remember, the other Daniel said. And sometimes they try again. For minutes and 51 seconds. You have to choose, the other Daniel said. Which side continues? Daniel laughed bitterly. That's not a choice. It is, the other insisted. One city stabilizes. One fades. And the people? Those standing in the overlap go with it, the other Daniel said. The rest keep moving forward, never quite sure what they lost. Daniel thought of Maya, of Mrs. Klein, of the man feeding pigeons. He stepped forward. 1 minute and 12 seconds. The younger Daniel looked relieved. Good, he said. Good for who? Daniel asked. For time, the other replied. They reached for each other. And the countdown hit 0. There was no explosion. No flash. Just a sensation, like stepping off a curb you thought was closer. Then, Daniel stood alone. The bridge was empty. No chalk circle. No numbers. The sun hung low in a sky that looked ordinary again. His phone buzzed. A notification from hours ago, finally arriving. All clear. Part 6. What the city forgot. The city woke up the next morning convinced it had survived something. What it could not agree on was what. News reports called it a temporary infrastructure anomaly. Officials spoke in careful sentences about sensor failures and mass confusion triggered by a false emergency cascade. Experts filled panels and talk shows, nodding gravely while explaining how modern cities were vulnerable to misinformation. The bridge reopened at 6 a.m. Traffic flowed. People went to work. Life resumed with the strange stiffness of a limb that had gone numb and was slowly waking up. Daniel Mercer sat at his kitchen table, staring at a notebook he didn't remember bringing home. The notebook was heavier than it should have been. Inside were his notes, the ones he recognized and the ones he didn't. Pages filled with dates that didn't line up, sketches of circles, fragments of conversations he could almost hear if he closed his eyes. The final page read, "We kept this one. No signature. No explanation." Daniel closed the notebook and looked out the window. The crack in his ceiling was gone. He noticed small things first. His coffee mug now read "World's okay, Dad." The delivery truck outside had a logo he didn't recognize. Not new, just slightly off. As if it had always been that way and he'd only just noticed. His phone buzzed. A text from Maya. "You alive?" He exhaled and typed back. "I think so." Seconds later. "Good. Coffee." They met at the same cafe near the park. It looked the same. It felt different. Maya studied him over her cup. "You look like someone who remembers something they're not supposed to," she said. Daniel smiled weakly. "Funny. I was going to say the same about you." She glanced away. "I dreamed about the bridge last night," she said. But it wasn't breaking. It was choosing. Daniel's hand tightened around his cup. What did it choose? She met his eyes. "I don't know," she said. "But I woke up sad." They walked afterward, passing people who laughed, argued, lived. No one mentioned the countdown. No one mentioned the object. Except one boy, maybe 10 years old, chalking on the sidewalk. A circle. Daniel stopped. "What are you drawing?" he asked gently. The boy shrugged. "My mom says it helps things stay where they're supposed to." Daniel nodded. "That's good advice," he said. That night, Daniel sat alone and finally read the notebook all the way through. The truth emerged slowly. They hadn't chosen which city survived. They'd chosen which version of memory did. This city, this timeline, was stable because it had let go of the moment it almost became something else. The other city still existed. Somewhere. With a version of Daniel who stayed. At 11:47 p.m., Daniel felt it. A pressure. Not painful. Familiar. The clock on his wall skipped forward 1 minute. Then another. Then stopped. Daniel opened the notebook to a blank page. His hand moved without hesitation. "The overlap is quiet now." He paused, then added, "But it is not gone." Weeks later, a new plaque appeared on the bridge. No announcement accompanied it. It read, "This structure was reinforced in 2026 to ensure long-term stability." People walked past without reading it. Daniel stopped every time, because he knew what it really meant. The city had held its breath, and then it exhaled. But somewhere, in the spaces between seconds, something else was still counting.